Hi, everybody. This is Steven here from C64 Brain. Thanks for joining me today for this Twitch stream. This is actually going to be a video series that's actually normally going to be every single Friday, but of course I recorded last night, and because Twitch is telling me I didn't have the VOD settings set correctly, they never recorded my video because I basically wasn't given the permission to write to my hard drive, which I think is dumb. They should have AI tools to track that, but I guess we're not there yet. But anyways, I created a short on YouTube for people who do want to join this stream. You have to bear with me. I might still be setting up things as we go here, and I'm actually recording this real time, so I'm going to be tracking it this time because I'm so tired of losing work that you worked hard on. So let me make sure my video is recording here. First thing I want to do, just in case Twitch fails, it looks like my video is in session here. So that will tell me that everything is recording live there. I do see the record button down here in OBS. So what you're seeing here on the screen is the example of the project I'll be demonstrating today and going over. This is actually called the Sprite Stories. It's going to be an upcoming video for actually my Patreon viewers because I'm going to be working on a Patreon channel. There's going to be kind of two broken down sessions, which I'll go into more later, but you're going to get more one-on-one support with me if you decide to join the Patreon, where I could actually help you with programming questions and stuff like that. And you'll see more live sessions directly with the coding, kind of similar to this, but it's going to be a little bit more involved. I also would like to teach people what I've been learning about with CharPad and stuff like that. I can pretty much go in there now. I wouldn't say I'm the best artist, but I can go in there and create maps right from the fly instead of trying to, pull away from extraction and grab everybody else's work and try to reuse tiles that are already out there. Unfortunately, you get what you get. It was somewhere around March of this year when I decided I was finally going to learn the CharPad, really understand it, and build my own maps. And I'll demonstrate that in this video here for you guys who are going to see this. I did mention in the last YouTube video, by the way, that I would be showing you those things here. So let me make sure all my properties are set up here properly. So I'm going to do a quick rundown here with my Twitch. And I'm in my OBS settings here, and it looks like everything is set to go there. I'm going to shrink this down probably a little bit. This is the actual code here for the project. Now, many of you will probably recognize and think this is the actual Commodore 64 game project, and yeah, it's taken from the original one, but I'm breaking it down here more now so I can start creating the Sprite Stories from this, because it's a game engine that was handed to me down somewhere, I think it was around 2017 or so, by somebody who actually built it. His name was Siggy, and he was from Australia. It took me a long time to understand his work, and there's still a lot of things I don't understand, but there's also a lot of code in there that I think is too long and repetitive, and we need to get rid of some of that as well. So anyways, let me make sure my joystick is connected. I'm already using an Xbox controller. You see here, this thing kicks off so much, it really can be annoying. So the green light means it's not detecting Wi-Fi, so I just have to go like this every single time just to get it back on, and it'll spin like that. You see how it's just spinning there. Now it should be back on. It'll probably kick back off here, so I just keep hitting the button. I have no idea. If you know any reason why an Xbox controller I have on Wi-Fi keeps kicking back off of Wi-Fi, even though I've told Microsoft that it's a recognized device, please go ahead, and if you end up in this stream or whatever, please let me know. Obviously, I'm going to upload this video to YouTube, so you'll be able to see it there in the public section. It's not going to be on Patreon, by the way. Actually, you know what? I may make that a Patreon video. I don't know at this point. This is just a first video. I want to kind of keep a consistency. So if I do everything to YouTube, I want to kind of keep that consistency versus having a Patreon. So I may just put it on Patreon for those who may not have a Twitch channel or something like that. So we'll come across all that right now. I'm still putting that all into practice. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. See, it just turned green on me again. Knew it was going to do that. My table's vibrating here, and I'm running the project now. You see my mouse up here. I'm using CBM PRG Studio. This is an editor that can be used to compile your Commodore 64 programs into a assembly language. It probably makes sense, kind of weird sense, because we're in assembly language, but it still has to compile it to machine code. That's the right word. Machine language, the bits, numbers, zeros, ones, bits, and bytes, so the computer understands how to process that information. And let's see, the bar is running here at the bottom, so it means it's finalizing. And it was running really slow last night, so I also have my Commodore in the background here, but I don't know if you can see that. I actually have the Alien game on here, but you hear the music there a little bit if I turn it up. I don't know, it's playing very loud. It's always hard to get a Commodore screen directly to show up on an actual video, especially a live session or anything. I'm dimming it right there. You can kind of see a little bit more. If I dim it down, you might see it better. Sometimes if I go like that, but probably about as best as I can get it. It's like all green screen. So here, and that's the point of this video. I just wanted to get this. I ran out a little bit of time. I was supposed to go on this at like 1:30, so I'm a little bit over here. So let's see what it tells me here. Does it say press key or anything? Let's press a key. It told me to put my joystick in earlier, so no idea if it's going to work or not. It won't if it's not plugged in. This is just a little recess, by the way. I wanted to have something running in the background, even like something like that would be cool while I'm going for like a break or something like that. So I'm in the wrong port. I have no idea at this point. I'm pressing my button, nothing is working. Maybe it just crashed, I don't know. Enough of that. So anyways, anywho, let's get back to this, and you can see over here, fortunately it didn't pick up my Vice window, so I'm going to switch screens to my Vice here, because I don't really have a way of making it any bigger than that. If I just leave it on the main screen, it'll be a little bit smaller, so I think we'll have to switch back and forth between those two, between this one and this one, when you want to see the code. And this is where I actually run. It's already compiled the program here, and now I'm basically setting up what it's going to do here is it's going to load multiple maps. And so I'm telling them where the maps, the CharPad maps are actually located, so we can get those into memory here. So they're all going to be saved in the start address of 4800. So let's see here. You won't see this, but I'm actually scrolling through my directory right now, so I can select where the game files are, or the map files in this case. This is not the right area, I don't think. Let me see here. I could probably still get away with this one, although this isn't the one I wanted to use. Let me see. Oh, here they are. I found them. So it's game G6. There we go. Now I'm back here and I can run it finally. Now that it's recognized that there's a map running in the background, it'll pick that up here. And just now notice you're looking at the wrong window here. So let me see if I can switch that over here. There's two different Vice versions running here. So there we go. Much better. Okay, now you can see, and my joystick did not turn off this time. Amazing. You can see I can kind of move around here, right? It gets a little bit distorted too because of the scrolling issues I've had with this project. But anyways, the whole purpose is here, once you get, you're going to start out on the hotel map. This is not the scene of the game. This is just a demo. You hit the couch there. Now I'm actually looking at a totally different CharPad map. And this was the whole initial idea that led me to wanting to learn how to load in map after map after map, which unfortunately you can't load in 100 maps, so one that I would know of. But I've learned to load in about 5 maps now and being able to walk around them and everything. So you'll see this is a little bit larger map here actually. I can walk around now. You notice there's another sprite here. Don't pay attention to that. It's just a static sprite. So right now it's not really doing much except just moving on and off the screen here. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, I actually went to the other map. Okay, well, the thing is I ran into the door, so it took me to the next map in the session, but that map is a lot larger than I was going to show you for. Anyways, I do have this is going to be one of the actual screens that will be used in the Sprite Stories project. So initially here, he's walking around, and I'm going to, right now, real quickly, just for myself, I want to make sure that my video is still recording here properly. Because like I said, there's no pain in losing something like that until you've gone through it. Let's just see the recording button down here, and looks like my file got a little bit larger there. doing a refresh in my browser window. Let me just detect it again. But anyways, you'll see when I touch that bed there, it says Chip settles down. They're taking a nap. This is what the player's name here is, Chip. There's two people, Chip and Flip, and they have in these little adventure stories. I'll show you a little bit. Another reason that kind of inspired me for this is there was actually a program I came across on Lodestar 67 called Huggy Bear's Christmas, or Huggy Bear's First Christmas, I think it was. And it runs in BASIC, but it runs and it creates like a whole story scene using sprites and background pedaxi characters. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I would like to be able to do something like that and kind of emulate that with what I'm doing currently. So we'll go back over that here. I want to go back and double check my video. Thanks for bearing with me on that. I do have my chat stream up here, so I can see if anybody pops in here. Just to kind of keep track of that here. It says I'm streaming. Let me refresh this if anything shows up on the video yet. Very thirsty. Okay, it looks like my Twitch stream isn't recording, but it did the same thing last night. It showed me it was recording in Twitch, and I still got these permission settings later saying, oh, you didn't enable VOD, so we never saved it. So that's why I am learning to save every single video. And I know they only stay up there for about, 7 days? They delete them anyway. But it looks like my video is now at 210 kilobytes. So it looks like it's saving it. I only have about 1 terabyte left on this hard drive, so I hope this video doesn't go that long. It's going to be about a 2-hour session here. I don't want to go too much further because I have, fortunately, a smaller hard drive here that I'm recording. I didn't have enough time. I was going to try to remove some games I had on there because there's a little bit more room than just, 1 terabyte here. I've actually propertied it here for a minute in Windows. It says there's actually a total free space of 1.85 terabyte. Not a whole lot more, but but it would give me the extra advantage had I, had a brand new hard drive and wanted to save my Twitch recording to it. So anyways, back to the game in session here, or project in session. These are not going to be games, by the way. For those who want to know, this is going to be like a demo series. And again, I'll show you that video here in a little minute to show you kind of where this all came from. So you can see it kind of move around. You can still interact with the environment. So as you touch things, it's kind of like those old school games, if you ever played them. I can't even think of one off the top of my head right now, but there's like Maniac Mansion was one of them, I think, where you could interact and have like an interactivity going on with characters, and I think they may have used the keyboard to interact with people. Now there's a mouse clicking, you had to click on, if you wanted to walk and stuff like that. All this is going to be the same thing. It's going to be similar to that, and it's going to have stories as he interacts. One of the things I came up with this was actually based on my own experience, which was, since these are kids and they're going to school, is let's say they're walking to school and he was waiting for his friend to show up, and his friend was delayed. Maybe he was trying to find his coat or something because it was cold outside. And by the time Chip and Flip got to the bus stop, they're waiting there, waiting for the bus. They noticed that there's no kids around. They're looking all over the place. So like, well, usually there's a bunch of kids out here. And so kids like looking around, trying to figure out what day is this. Let's say this is before flip phones, and they're trying to look at his watch. He's like, well, it looks like it's about what? I'm looking at my watch. It's about 7:30. The bus should have been here already. I think sometimes the bus gets here a little bit, later, but I've never seen it this late. And they stand here probably for another, minute or so before they finally realize, lo and behold, we missed the bus. And it's a horrible thing when you miss the bus, because what are you going to do? Wait for the next bus? No, that's not how the buses work. You got to make sure you catch your bus, or you're pretty much, left in the dust at that point. So they missed their bus, and then they have to walk to school. Now, this part was actually based on a real scenario I did when I was growing up. Before I could drive in high school, I actually had to walk to school. You ever hear that story? I used to walk 10 miles to school. I wouldn't say I walked 10 miles, but I probably did walk maybe 5 or 6 miles to school every day before I could drive. So they'll be walking to school, and kind of a scenario that actually happened to me. I may or not put this in the project, but I want to make it kind of funny in a way too. I was walking to school one day with my friend, and I think he was standing on the farther end, and of course I was standing right next to the street there. It was a rainy day. We were walking past the Burger King there, and I noticed after we kind of walked across a little short street, and then I don't know, I was waiting for a light to change, I remember, and of course there was a car coming down there behind us, and it was raining so much there was a lot of water in the road. He drives right in the water, and all of a sudden I got drenched with a bunch of water, and my friend just started laughing at me. I'm like, it was just horrible humiliation, right? But those kind of funny things, like, okay, his friends got drenched, maybe along the way somebody harasses them or something like that. Those kind of things I think would be interesting in like a Sprite Stories. So back to this though. We'll have other little things we could add into it. I'm building that up as we go here. So anyways, here, he can interact with stuff. Right now, he kind of looks like he's falling through the stairs. So I originally had it so you could walk down the stairs, but it was kind of corny because you could fall right down there through the middle. I know it's not the best map for this. It's just me doing some test maps. But here, now he's down on the next level, right? You see a little couch or chair there, and you see this is supposed to be a TV. Bear with me, but yeah, that's what it is. And over here, there's nothing over here actually. I don't think so. Okay, so let me see here. Down here is the actual garage. Now I have an area where I can actually fall through, and this thing is scrolling horribly right now. It's really ripping the screen. So something else I'm trying to work out in Debugger. Now that I've got through a lot of things, just trying to work out the scroll issue. I noticed it happens, and we'll go into this a little bit more later about setting up pseudocode, which is what my video did last night. Is I set this up that way, and whenever I noticed whenever he would bump into something, that suddenly it would tear the screen, like you just saw there. So I think it might be related to the collision area. I also have a collision being set up for the second sprite, so it could be happening in there, because I think one time I commented out a lot of lines that I still kept seeing the same crappy thing with scrolling. I even used my original scrolling file, which had no tears when he moved left or right and he fell. So that's been something ongoing I've been trying to figure out. But anyways, you see this door here? You notice I've been touching different things and it's kind of switching me from map to map. We're on the third map right now, correct? Now, if I want to go to the next map here, first I'm going to jump over this door here for a minute if I can. I wanted to go into the kitchen to see. Okay, it looks like I made it here. This is another part of the map to show you here because there's a door over here. I could use this as the example here. Now, once I hit this door, he's going to go to map number 4. Now we're at map number 4. So see, we've already looked at 4 different CharPad maps. So it's not like you have to build out one single map for your entire project. Once you start learning how the kernel works, you can actually start, and this is something I learned this year. It took a good while to learn it. But actually you can start loading map after map using the kernel. And the kernel was basically a way of just telling your disk drive where the next file is. You do have to do a few steps here, which I'll probably go in a little example is. There's a tool called Disk Doctor in BASIC. You have to go in, there's like a sector editor, and you have to set the starting address before each file. So each file, and I'll go more into that later here, but let's think about each map in general. Say we have map 1 all the way up to map 5. So you tell it where the starting address is for map 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or how many maps you have. If you don't get that information correct, though, it's very important that fortunately the kernel won't know what to do with your project. And I've noticed when I do it incorrectly, it just kind of rips the screen. That's kind of, you know, it looks like a bunch of garbage on the screen. It basically didn't find it. So that's very important to do. So let me see. I think my joystick just shut off again. It did. So I'll wait for this to restore itself. Hopefully we can get the player moving again here. There we go. Okay, so this is the 4th map here. And he's in a back alley. So this one made a little bit more sense, right? He went out of a door, now he's outside. The first one probably didn't make a lot of sense. He jumped on a couch and lo and behold, he transported to another map. That was just me an example of testing to make sure that the maps were working. So I just picked an object and so this is the object that'll take me to map number 2 and so on. So anyways here, and you notice the sprite looks a little bit more natural here because of where it's still positioned there. But as we move over here, this is going to be the next trigger for my map, which is this police car. But you can also see I can, you know, move back and forth between the maps and stuff like that. And that's about the length of this map, I think. So I do know there's another trigger point through it. If you jump through this door here and go up the stairs there, it'll take you back to map 1. And let me see if that will work. And then we could probably, I know I had, there it goes right there. So there's the hotel. He got back in the hotel. He went right back to the map. I have no idea how that happened. But anyways, we'll go back over here and we'll see the next map. I think he got triggered by the stairs there that time or something. But anyway, with pseudocode there, you could kind of figure out what happened with that. So here's the last map. This is map number 5. And you see he's inside the school building. And again, my stupid map is tearing like crazy. It looks like it's only tearing on the one screen right. So when I move left and right, it instantly fixes it. So it's not a scroll problem to the right or left. It's when this is why I keep thinking it has something to do with that one area where you first are on the map and you load it in. It's like a static map that's triggering the problem. But of course, one time I'm scrolling down and I'm falling, it's also an issue on the vertical. So there's a couple things you have to look at here. So it's not picture perfect, right? But you can see he's on map number 4. Now, unfortunately, I have no return point at this point because I haven't set a return point on this map. He's kind of trapped on this level. Funny scenario, if you ever played the Myst game, at the end of the game, if you choose the wrong path, you get locked into a book, and this is and you can't go anywhere. You get trapped, basically. So anyways, my joystick to die. He's going to keep walking forever, so I'm going to turn this off. I have to restart the project to get that back there. So we'll return to the code here. I wanted to go double check my video and make sure it's still recording. You'll hear me say that from time to time because I really do not want to go through that again. It does show me it's still recording in OBS, but I'm going to double check my video and make sure it's updated. I think it was like 210 kilobytes I said last time. Let's see if it's increased. It's like 1 megabyte or so. Yep, it looks like it's at 419 kilobyte right now. Not bad. Twitch does a pretty good job on, the size of, and then we've been recording here for about a half hour. So in a half hour, I'm looking at less than a megabyte. It's a pretty good size of memory. I mean, that you could actually fit on a hard drive. You could probably fit quite a few different Twitch videos before you have to, delete them off of your hard drive. So let me also double check to make sure that the people in Facebook know I've gone live because I did send out a message to them too, but I forgot to put in the link again. So I'm going to just do a 360 turn or 180 turn here so I can advertise that as well. Let them know that I'm live. A lot of my traffic, unfortunately, is overseas for the most part. So it's possible that people may be off to bed at this time or whatever. I don't know what time it is in Germany, Finland, or all these other countries. I do talk to people from Germany, other places in Germany. That would be, in UK is a big one too, United Kingdom. So let's see here. I'm gonna edit my post. I'm on a separate screen here just for a minute, going into my post and say I am now live here, and I'll just drop the link in. See you soon. There you go. So hopefully that all goes well. Maybe somebody will show up. Now, since this is my first video, and after a very long time of taking a recess from Twitch, I don't expect anyone to show up, but it'd be nice if somebody did show up. I'm so thirsty. Okay, so let's go back to the programming session. Since I mentioned the map, I can go in a little bit more detail to kind of explain what I was talking about with the map loading. Now here, as I scroll down through the project here, I'm just gonna move the screen over here a little bit. I can get to the scroll bar. You see these all the top where it says tile depth and all this, just telling you how big the map is. And this would be too complex to explain in one go, but initially with CharPad, you have to tell it the dimensions of your map. And when I'm not at the CharPad keeps track of this, but when you get into your project, you have to tell your project the dimensions of the map. Because if anybody who's new to semi-language may not know this, is with semi-language, you have to tell it everything from the start. You start a brand new program in a semi-language, and think it like this. Your computer knows nothing at that point. Although really there's a lot of processing information going on in the background, IO registers, kernel, ROM, VIC, and all that. But initially, from your project standpoint, it knows nothing about what you're trying to do. So that's why semi-language is difficult to get started with. You can't instantly throw up graphics on the screen like you just saw there. This program alone here has practically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let me see, 7, 8, 9, I'd say 9 or 10 different files alone related to it that are quite long. So with the semi language, just to kind of give you a lesson on that, if you really want to get good at it, first of all, if you haven't learned basic programming much, let's say you have a hate or love relationship with it, I still encourage you always learn basic first, because basic is just the easier way to go, easier way that your brain will connect to the logic behind the scenes. For those who don't jump straight into semi-language, unfortunately, if you don't have that understanding of basic, how to poke stuff into memory, put a sprite on the screen, whatever, move it around, and displays and stuff like that, you're going to be pretty lost when you go in here, because you're not going to understand the mapping of the Commodore 64. You don't have that book around here somewhere. It's over here, actually. This is your Bible to the Commodore 64, map of the Commodore 64 here. This will teach you all about the memory of your computer. I definitely encourage you to get the PDF. You can get it online. I'll try to put the link in the description here somewhere later. But without that book, you'd be pretty lost. I remember when I first bought my copy of it, I was just blown away by how much further it was taking me at that point. Now, when I got into my Commodore 64, I was already versed a little bit in the semi language, because I actually learned the semi language as far back as I don't know, like it was early 80s or somewhere around there. Actually, let's see. I started my first project, I think it was like early 90s, because I got my first computer, which was Atari 65XE, in 1988 or 89? I'm trying to remember now. Out of high school, I graduated in 1988, so I think it was in 1989 or 90, somewhere around that very close period when I got it. And eventually, I started with BASIC, as I mentioned, and I started programming my own stuff. And I was inspired as I started programming with BASIC. I wanted to start learning how to make games, so I started with little graphics and stuff like that, which were built into the computer itself, and started moving those around and stuff like that. Eventually, I learned how to move characters around on the screen, sprites and stuff like that. And that's where you want to start, because then once you have that knowledge, you can transfer that over a lot easier to a semi language. So anyways, I can go into whole, spiel about that, but I hope you get the point. So back to the project here in session. Excuse me. I'm skipping over here a lot so we don't have to break this all down, but the project itself is using a bank of memory to have a larger area of work to work with the graphics. So you can basically take a 16K area of memory and use that to manipulate where you want your graphics, your sprites, and everything else to appear. So right now here on the screen, you see this section right here. This is the one we're going to be focused on, because this is the one right here, load set from disk, that is going to read those files as I talked about earlier. We saw the 5 different maps. So this is keeping track of which map. You see, if you pay attention to this X register here, this X is representing which map currently here. So I put 5 next. If I change this and say which map to load, that might make it a little bit better. And it's using a kernel routine to load these behind the scenes. Now there's another part here that gets added into another section. This just draws your map on the screen. I won't go into a lot of detail about this. There's 2 different parts of it. And again, that's where semi language can get a little bit bulky and maybe a little bit, overwhelming at times, because you're trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm looking at this program and I'm supposed to learn these subroutines and start building all these smaller subroutines, but this one is actually made up of 2. Yeah, I actually have a subroutine that's combined it in to make 2 different subroutines at the same time. They're being used for the same logic puzzle, which is basically to load a map on the screen and show it. That's exactly what this is doing. So anyways, this file here is gonna exist over here in our game routines. So I'm gonna skip over there here. I know it's somewhere around here. Let's scroll down a little bit. There it is. I'm gonna double check it again on the screen. And this is where we're gonna go into more detail in this program here. So this is, I'll start breaking it down here for you. This is where we are starting to ask the kernel, where is this map located, right? So the load address table is figuring out where is this where is this map in memory. Remember earlier I talked about the character set being at 4800. So this is what this is doing here, is it's looking at a table further down here and I'll make a screenshot of it here. Actually, that won't work with OBS, but if I move down here, you can see it really quickly here. right here. So the load address table here is loading this char load. And this char load is basically reading at 4800. I just a variable I set to call it at 4800, which I think is up here somewhere at the top here. I think if I search for char load, if you really want to see that here, right there, well, it actually starts at 4802. And the reason for that is you have to have 2 bytes for that high and low for your starting address. You're telling, remember that program I mentioned earlier, which was called disk doctor. Hopefully I'll have time to demonstrate that. The disk doctor program is that sector editor that you tell where on the tracks on your diskette, your disk image here, where is that file located in memory. So by setting those 2 bytes, you're basically taking 2 extra sectors and you're adding them before that file, if I'm understanding that correctly. So adding them so it knows that this file that is to, let's say, the right of these two bits, right? That this is going to be the file that we're looking for. And you do that for the next map, okay? And again, we set it to 4800, right? So then the 4802 you see here is going to tell me, okay, this is where it's now going to look at that file name. I'm sorry, the character data. So this is where the character data is loading in. So it's basically keeping track of where the character data is loading for each individual map. So back here to game routines. Hopefully that part makes sense now. I think what I'll do is I'll save this and kind of jumping around here a little bit faster. I can always go something like this and quickly it'll jump there. Saves a little bit more time. So now we know we're storing this into a temporary table here for the addresses for the low bits and the high bits of where this project is going to appear in memory. Now on the next step here, to kind of keep this moving forward. Now this is a little bit complex, so kind of maybe take your notes, drink your coffee or whatever you're doing. And stay with me because this is really good for those who want to go up and advance their level in a semi language and load more than one map. If you understand this tool, get that behind the scenes look as you're looking at this video, then yes, you can finally understand how to load multiple maps in memory. Instead of just working with one individual map, which a lot of people may argue, oh, I can always work with the same map. But for me, if I want to be able to create a whole different scenario, I can't do that off of just one single CharPad map. It's just, I mean, there's probably people who've done a lot of different things, but you're just basically reusing a lot of those tiles. And here you saw that they all look totally different from each other. So if I could learn to load a lot more than just 5 maps, I could make a really cool story out of it. That's where I'm trying to go with that. But right now, it's just kind of a test in progress. So to move forward with this, I'm going to now, whoops, I shrunk this down. Sorry about that. Yeah, just because I moved my window and it took control of the properties of CVM PRG Studio there. So I'm going to copy this file link table so we can go into the next explanation here. So file link table, to break that down for you, is basically saying how many bytes is this file, and you need to tell the kernel that. Very important, which I'll go in an explanation on. If you don't tell it the right size, I had to learn this so hard. If you don't tell it the right size of your file, it just won't find it. So if you have one file name that's longer than another, shorter than another one, you always want to count those, and I'll demonstrate that here in just a minute. So let's go down here, and again, we'll jump down here to find it. Okay. And I just noticed I had that in there twice, so let me just get rid of that. I was doing 2 different scenarios. Originally, I was trying to use several different subroutines to load map 1, map 2, and map 3. That's why I learned how to just reuse one to use all of them. You always want to be able to reuse code in a semi language because you're only limited with so much memory. In this case, I'm limited with 16K, right? So I'm working just off of that alone. So anyways, back here on the track, we have file link table, and you'll see that there's a 14 starting in this table. This is the table for it. So they start at 0. You got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is actually 5 maps it's going to be looking for within this table. And if you get more, of course, you can add more and more on here. Now, keeping track of that, right? Stick with me. Up here, these are the actual file names that will be loaded in memory. You'll see a lot of different things I've been playing with, and I could probably start deleting some of these out. I don't think I need this one anymore, just to kind of clean this up for you a little bit here. I know I don't need this one because we have a duplicate on that one. Now, obviously, I don't need these. Notice I wrote the length of the file names here. I was keeping track of them. And then, of course, I'm not using these. I was testing these two maps, the Gotham City map and the factory map I had. So that hopefully narrow it down. I could take this out for now so that doesn't confuse you either. So where these are all coming from, and time to do a quick check to make sure again that my video is updating properly. So 419 KB. Let me refresh that real quick. Here. It looked like it changed. I'm just going to close out the window and go back into it again. I'm trying to check this in File Explorer each time. I don't see a refresh option here anywhere. Let me see. So I'm always just closing in and out just to get back into it. So anyways, I'll go back into my videos folder, which is where these are all by default, and make sure that the Twitch is updated 696 KB. It's on its way still. Cool. I trust that everything will be there this time. After recording 2.5 hours last night or whatever it was, I lost everything, and that's kind of, frustrating. So back on track here, right? So we have the file. There's a low and a high byte, so you want to keep track of which file name. Now over here, move the scroll bar here so you can see this a little bit. These are the different file names we're using, and they're not in exact order because I was adding and playing with different maps at the time. So file name 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the 5 maps we're working with there. So I'm going to make a quick note here. Open up a little side notepad here and just write those down. So 1, 5, 6, 7, and I'm sorry, I did that backward. 5, 6, 7. 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that part's in order. Just the first part is missing 2 through 4. And I'll probably put that back in order later. But for now, as I kept playing with these maps, I was testing out different maps. Eventually, I was moving back and forth between maybe 2 and another map. So I ended up with a big jump in between them. No biggie, right? We can fix that later, no biggie. But the important thing here is remember what I said earlier about the file length table down here, right? Our file length table, keeping track, there's a 14 on this one. I'll just copy this from my own records here. And maybe I'll add another window here later and show you what I'm doing on the side there. Basically, I'm just keeping track of what the project is doing. This is the pseudocode I'm talking about. If you get stuck on it, there are other ways in the assembly language, of course, and it's very proper. And then, traditional or whatever the word is, mandatory, I don't know, to use the Vice monitor, or if you're going to use something like the C64 debugger, you want to use a debugger to track what the project is doing at the lower level. But this is if I'm like trying to figure out on my own why something I just did, I just changed, and I couldn't get the project to run until I changed maybe 3 or 4 different things. Suddenly now it's not doing this part. Maybe here earlier he was colliding and now he's like walking through this wall. It's like, why is that happening now? So I learned in college it's very important to do pseudocode, and unfortunately I'm not the best person to say that I commit to this, but I'm trying to get better at committing to it. Because I learned one time when I wasn't using pseudocode and I was just trying to do it my own way, which is just changing a bunch of code instead of, looking at it at that level, that I was spending a lot of time changing things over and over and kind of making it worse sometimes. And then it's a constant cycle that you go through. So I ran into a problem where I was just trying to get, I don't know if it was a scrolling issue or something I was really trying to work out and I could not get it to work. And eventually I decided, hey, let's just pseudocode that out. Now we have to write out all this code, right? All the code that where you think the issue is actually occurring at. And as soon as I did that, instantly I identified what was going on with it. And I think it was my SID editor I was working with. I wasn't able to get that's what it was. I wasn't able to get the data loaded properly to the screen. So whenever you changed a sound register, it would tell you and show you what the next register correctly was. So it wasn't changing that waveform to the next waveform. I have a sound editor tool I'm working on here. But that's besides the point. The point is understanding that the pseudocode is your key to trying to work out a lot of your problems you're going to run into. Because after I did that, instantly I was able to get it working again, no problem. And it would have saved you hours of just playing with your code, going back, looking at the monitor, looking at values at the lower level. I mean, a lot of people would argue, okay, that's the way you're supposed to do it. but it doesn't always work in your favor in that way. So I found out pseudocode is the best way on my part. You just have to be committed to, like, I just copy pasted all this, and sometimes you have to type it out, and committed to pseudocode to get it to work. So let me see if I can add another window here so I can kind of demonstrate what I'm doing there. I'll just bear with me a second here. I'm going to add this little notepad window I just created there. Hopefully it loads. It loaded on this side here. I'll move it over here. Not a bad example because on this one we still have the project here on the side. So you see this right here, right? This is my notepad window here. I'm going to expand it a little bit. That's the underline. So you see I copied numbers here earlier. Remember these? We were copying. Maybe after you could put like a message saying that this is the map loaded. And there's 1 to 5 here. And then, of course, the numbers represent the file name or the file type that is being loaded or something like that. So we know that it was file name 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So, and here we have the file name table copy. So now this is what I wanted to show you, because if you don't have the correct counting for each one, it'll fail on the map. So getting back to that, getting back with our wheels back on that track here, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to demonstrate this. You see this one right here. This is the first map we appeared in earlier, which was the hotel, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to count these like we're back in, I don't know, 4th grade or whatever, or 5th grade or 3rd grade. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we just counted out 14, and you can see that's exactly what I have here for the file name. So if I change this to something else, I could demonstrate what will happen. And let me actually do that right now as an example here. Remember I said if you have the wrong file name, it would just plain out fail. And I think what they'll do is they'll probably throw a black background or something like that. Make sure my joystick is back on again here, because of course it keeps shutting back off. So we'll change it to something like just barely off, like 13. Let's say we didn't count that extension, the dot part of the bin, because that's part of the file name being written in to the IO area or whatever. So I'll save that. I don't need to save. I'll just rerun it. I think saving is probably unnecessary, but so we'll run that here. And one thing, reason why you hear me talk about the controller is, and I have to keep mine running here, because before it runs the project, Vice is not going to know where your joystick is after it's run. There's no way of telling it, like kind of like a Wi-Fi can always detect at any time whether it's in Wi-Fi or not. This, unfortunately, is an older tool. Once you run it, from my knowledge, is that it's going to detect what happens to your joystick. And that may be because of the version I'm using, which looks like the version that I'm using. To get this map properly, I had to use 2.4, which is an older map. I've tried to get this to work on the new emulators, but the maps just don't want to work properly yet. So anyways, I'm back here, so I'm going to switch over to our Vice screen. And of course, which one was it? Oh, yeah, I did. I just loaded the wrong one again here. So let me switch this out again here real quick. Right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the attach disk image or file menu, attach disk image, drive 8, and I'm looking for the directory name. The name of my disk image is called game6g.d64 because I started with A and now I'm up to letter G. And I'm going to do is I'm going to select that. So now we've just already told it where all these files are located. All we have to do is run it. Remember, I changed that file length earlier, so let's see if it fails on the first map. It did. That's exactly what it was doing for the longest time. It was driving me nuts. I'm like, I'm not getting anything. So I have a whole Facebook on this, on a Facebook Lemon64 forum where I was trying to learn this and show people, look, I just loaded it, but it's not loading it. So I started writing out where the actual individual map data was doing, and I put that underneath here to kind of track it. And eventually I went into basic, created a little basic program to pull all the data out that way, look at it. You know, I didn't really have a sector editor or whatever, but that's what's really important. You just saw now why your file length must be the correct size, otherwise it just won't know where to load it. So it'll never find it here, just run around and you'll never see anything. Oh, actually it did detect, because the collision detection is still working there. Remember, map number 2, we didn't change that file name, so it found that one. It was able to jump the 1, and now it's going through your disk sector. Your disk sector's on like a floppy disk, and it says, okay, I'm going it. Let's look at the starting address for the next file name. Oh, that's correct. That's why we got the next map to load. And let's do another test run on that here. We'll go back to the game routines right here. I'll switch back over. And we had this one to, what I'll do is instead of changing this one, let's change the third map, right? It's 16, we'll just set that one to 15. And we'll repeat the process here again. So it looks like map number 3 should fail. Let's see if that happens. The kernel knows what it's doing, so it's not dumb. You know, I just noticed on Twitch, one of my videos appeared. I wonder if it actually got my original video. 11 minutes ago? No, there's like 2 of them in there. Recent broadcast 11 minutes ago. This one of those was my test video. Huh. While I'm waiting for this to load, I don't know what happened here. It's still going. I'm going to jump over to YouTube here and check out the short I created and make sure that people are able to see that, because if I don't post it live, which I just now occurred to me, I'll need to post this live or nobody's going to never see it. So my nose is itching here. And I never really explained it, but in the background there, that if you wanted to see it, that's actually the alien game. Yeah, it's not going to work there, but it's the alien game that I had running on my Commodore 64 there. Pay no attention to this computer over here. That's one of the first computers I learned in high school. So put in the comments if you can see what computer that is. You can tell me what computers you see on my desk. So anyways, let me go back here and make sure nothing crashed. And then we'll load that. I want to definitely check to make sure this YouTube short is working here. So give me a minute on that too. Oh, by the way, do you guys like my haircut? My wife hates it. I told him didn't want to get a 1, and she said, well, let's try a 3. And I had no idea, although kind of weird shape. She kind of evened it out, but I think it's pretty buzzy, like a military cut. So it'll grow back. My hair grows back pretty fast anyway. So let me save this. They don't have a save option here anymore. I wonder if it saved my settings already. Looks like it did. Okay. YouTube is so AI anymore. Automated. So I'm going to go back here just for a minute. And we'll come back to the video in progress. I want to see if my short, looks like my short did show up. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to run my short here just for a minute just to see if anybody's responded to it. Hi everybody, this is Steve with C64 Brain. I'm going to be doing a Twitch here in about 5 minutes. I'm going to put the link in this description, so if you guys want to watch that, it's going to be talking about some upcoming things I'm doing for the Commodore 64. Thank you. And I only had 15 seconds. Hi everybody. So I had to speak really quickly. I don't know if that's because when you first do a short that they limit you, or are they always just 15 seconds? I don't know what I could really tell you in 15 seconds, so... I do remember when I got my first Windows computer back in the days, videos would only load and you never see the whole video. Like if you're watching a music video, you can never see the whole music video. So it only probably show you maybe about 1 or 2 minutes of it. It was so ironic. So anyways, that's where we started. So let's move over to device 1. I think it's this one. Yeah, it is. So again, we're going to always go and load that map in memory. Remember, we have map number, did I fix map number 1? I want to make sure map number 1 is fixed, otherwise we get nowhere. Oh, I forgot to fix map number 1. Let me go back and just fix all this real quick. Maybe we wouldn't have seen anything if I didn't do that. So I have to redo it anyway. I think it was 14, so I'll change this one to, I'll make it a higher number, see if it works on a higher number. I put it to file length 17 for our house map. Let's see if that works or fails. So I'm going to rerun the project again here, so you'll see it probably turn on and off with Vice here. I'll just switch back here for a minute while I'm waiting for that, so you're not too bored. So I also can check, this gives me time to also check to make sure my video file is still loading properly. Because I am just on a paranoia trust factor after what happened last night. Just to lose any work, if let's say you were working on a Commodore 64 semi-language project, and for some reason your computer rebooted and you never saved it, and you were working on it for like 3 or 4 hours, you just lost all that work. So that's kind of how it felt last night. It's like I just spent 2.5 hours on this and I got no reward from it. So it looks like it's still saving it properly here. That's good. It's almost up to a megabyte, but not quite. So I can also track it. So in about an hour, it's been close to a megabyte. So this video is only going to probably be about maybe 2 megabyte or so. It's not bad. You can put a lot of files on your computer for that. And I'm going to go here and I'm reloading in. Let me also test here the device to make sure I'm in the right window, which I'm not again. I have to switch it out. Right there, that's the one. So we're going to attach it here. You won't see this. This is just all being done. Whenever you try to, like, hover on a menu in Vice, it does not show in a live stream or anything that I've ever seen. So you see my mouse is moving because I actually have a pop-up box right now. This is the disk image pop-up box, which you can't see, of course. And I'm just going down here and selecting the file to tell it the files that'll load. And if I have some time, I'll try to demonstrate that later with the DIR master tool, which is where also is part of this, because you have to be able to make sure that these files exist on the actual disk image so it can see them. So I created a brand new disk image and I just started dropping the files in there using the DIR master tool. So a couple of tools were in process, encouraged to me by the Lemon 64 community. So here I'm going and touching it in those files. I did correct the first map, so it should look fine if all is well. What it should do here, just switch back here a minute. If all goes well, it should load in the hotel map, and then it should also load in the, I don't think I messed with map number 2, which was he dropped down and he was walking around that city part, and he hit the door and he went to the house map. So the house map should fail if I've done this correctly. So let's go back and run that again. Oh, so you see the first map loaded, and also my joystick didn't shut off this time, thank goodness. I'm just trying to readjust my chat window here because it got really in the way here. If anybody showed up, there's a little chat window I have here. I don't know if that's recording in my live or not. I have to click on my live here. Let me click on my live. That also tell me on Twitch that it's still recording properly. Now I'll show you this in just a minute. The I/O area with. Yeah, it's still loading properly there. The Twitch is a little bit behind too, so if you watch that and you go back to your last night, it could look like it wasn't on par, but I just learned it's just a little bit slower because it's loading in that data. But of course, if you don't have that VOD setting set, it'll never save it on Twitch, which is why I keep checking my hard drive to make sure it is loaded, because I told OBS to save the recording, so I have a copy of it myself. Anyways, back to the map. So we're going to again touch the couch, jump up and touch it because there's a little bit of a block in the way there. And one thing I didn't mention, you see the background here, the sky for some reason got warped when I tried to tell it where the starting address was. And I have another map that I did it with that worked fine, but I think it has something to do with the loading, because when I tried to load this up as the first map, I don't get an issue. And here goes that pseudocode stuff, right? But as soon as I tried to load the second map, nope, it always looks like this, but it's better than what it once was, I guess. Okay, now there's a way to get around this without jump. If I jump like that, I can show you a little bit more of the map, which I wanted to do earlier. So it's quite a large map here, so it goes all the way down to there. And there was like oh, I knew he was going to fall down. I have a little part where it actually goes further down there, so if I make him fall down, there's another part of the map here. Shoot. So it just tore the screen again. So you notice that happened when I fell. So when I fell there, the pseudocode would have to be checking the vertical direction as well, because when there's a vertical direction, and maybe if you move too quickly, bump something like that, that's when oh, I hope I didn't get just stuck there. There. I think I got, no, I got stuck. Okay, something else just happened here. I hope I don't. Alright, let me get the map back in here because he's stuck now. I can't even move. Sprite. I may have to rerun this again. He went too far down and he basically ended up in the collision area, and he's stuck between I don't know what you call that scenario, but he's stuck in a bad situation right now, so I can't really move anywhere here. I can't move to the right, and I can barely move here to the left because I didn't really set this up to block completely. But of course, he knows I can't jump. I can't get back to where I started, so I'll have to restart this one just to demonstrate if that third map fails. So let me rerun that again here and wait for that. While I'm also doing it, I want to set up I have my debugging notes on this screen. I'm going to add another window here so I can demonstrate the DR master tool I was talking about. I want to demonstrate that, and also another vice window. So I'm going to create a window capture here for OBS so I can get that loaded up. And let me grab a place here in the browser, open up the 64. So it'll find it here in the window settings. Go take a break. This might take me a moment here. It's not detecting the lemon 64, and you can always come back or skip this part of the video. I'm just trying to get this. There's lemon 64 detected. So there it is. I was trying to get this loaded in so that we could see this part later when I'd like to talk about where this all started and where I started learning how to load in multiple maps. Of course, you're seeing me do this real time, so these are not preset, so I have to kind of size these down and get them to fit better. So I think that might be good there. That's best I can do it. That's some weird stuff. I don't like that. Okay, anyways, I'm trying to get my Twitch stream on there with my chat, and every time I move it up, it increases the screen size. I have no idea. Now it just totally disappeared. Wait, it's at the top here. Okay, stream chat. What in the world is going on here? Like I said, if you need to take a break right now, this would be the best time to do it. Okay. Why work out the mechanics of this? Okay, so I'll go into that account here, and we'll come back to that example I was demonstrating with the third map failing. This is a great, we'll talk about this more, but this is a great forum to post any questions you get stuck on with the semi-language. Always go into the scene one. I found this to be the most, I think it might be one of the closer popular ones, but maybe not. But this is one of the great ones you can have, a semi-language question to answer. These guys are just wonderful, and they'll respond to pretty much any question you have here. So you can receive, this one alone got 18,200 views, and that was on June 8th. June 8th, wait. I don't know why that would be showing June 8th. Maybe that's when that post started. Here's August 23rd. Maybe that one they're probably updating it. Well, it's been around for a while. No wonder it's at 18,000, especially advertising a magazine that they have out there. So let me move back to the device. Well, let me get it running again here. So nobody showed up here. Yeah, I have 2 followers. That's funny. I have 1 viewer, but I cannot chat with you. So that's going on. Let me go into the Twitch over here, see if I can find this person. Maybe they're having trouble chatting with me. Still new at this. As I mentioned, it's been since 2019 when I last did my first Twitch. I mean, if I did one for the Commodore 64, those time it was just gaming. I was doing Grand Theft Auto, but it looks like I tried to go back in here and my chat just disappeared on Twitch. I'm trying to get it back up. So I'm going to reload the video again here. See if that chat comes back. Okay, I don't know what my chat just totally disappeared. It's kind of a bummer because I like to interact with people who have questions. One of the great things about Twitch is once you start building up an audience, you can start talking directly to people like me if you have questions or if you just want to chime in. So if you're on a microphone, the only thing I can tell you right now is go ahead and speak out if you want to say something, because I don't know what happened to the chat. But to go back here on track with this, at least I know that there's one person viewing it right now, assuming that isn't just me. I have a stream chat going here. I'm going to respond to it here and see if you guys can see it from here. I set this on up directly in OBS Studio. Hi, thanks for joining. Send a message to let me know that you can see this chat. So there you go. We'll see if somebody responds. But going back into the actual where we left off here, I'm going to rerun the project again here and wait for that vice to load, and then we'll, since we ran into that little problem, we got stuck between the wall there on that second map. And then from here, I'll demonstrate that it should fail on map number 3. Then we'll get back to the coding after this. It's already been, how long has it been? It's been 1 hour. Last night I was kind of going into a lot of different areas, so maybe the last video I did recorded was better that it never got saved, because really it probably wasn't very helpful to a lot of people. Different things to explain people there. It's like my sound thing kicked on here too. Okay, I'm gonna go back and attach those disk files real quickly and make sure that I've got the right vice again. Of course I don't know why it keeps defaulting to the other vice, so I'll switch it back here again. I had 2 vices running here, so maybe I just need to shut down the other one. Maybe I don't need it for anything else, but originally I was going to use it whenever I'm away. I have a program that runs in the background here where I could show you that, but anyways, back here. So 2064, remember we told it that this map was 14 bytes long, and it knows by matching that to the starting address that appears before that file name, since we told this doctor where that starting address is. So we also know map number 2 will work, as we saw that earlier, right? I got stuck down there. I won't go all the way down there this time, but I'll walk down here and we'll just hit the door, probably stop before we get to the door, and that will demo that map number 3 has failed, because I set it to 17 bytes. If it doesn't fail, then it may be that it's not too many bytes you have on it, but too many few. Let's see if it fails though. It actually didn't. I set it to 17 and now it's actually detecting, let me just double check that here. It's still detected the map properly. That's interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one down to 15 and see if we can get that one to fail. If not, we'll just resume back. But the initial point is it's really important to always tell it the correct file name length. So let me switch back here. If you guys have any questions, any questions, feel free to chat. So I don't know if you're seeing this, but I have my own little stream chat that I had set up directly inside OBS Studio. It says it's a stream chat. I don't think I have to enable it in any way. Let's see, users in chat. It says there's nobody here. Maybe I have to add people. Broadcaster, C64 Brain, I don't know. If it's because maybe I had the settings turned off. Or if you guys don't have a microphone or something like that. Whatever. But I would like to be able to eventually get people communicating, but that does take time, I realize. Okay, so now let's go back. It looks like it loaded it up again here. And this time I actually grabbed the right vice, thank you. And I set it to run, and it's going to be 15 bytes long for map number 3 now. And originally it's supposed to be 16. Remember, you're counting those characters. If you miss one, it should fail, but this will be the last try I think I'll do on it. I'll need to retouch the map again, because it's like looking at a disk drive. And I could, if you look at the background here, you can see my little disk drive. For those who may not know, this is a floppy Commodore 64 disk drive on the bottom here. That what you're doing initially here, and I'll give you an example here, just as a disk for that, is you're running it off of a floppy disk, right? So it does is it build, whenever you have these file names existing on here, they exist on tracks within the disk, and you're telling it on these where these individual starting addresses for each file name. So it looks down, starts going down through those file names, and it looks at those two individual bytes in front of it and said this is the low and the high byte, and says do those actually have a starting address that you need for this area of memory? And this starting address for this character set, which is what all these maps are doing, needs to be at 4800 because that's where I told my program, which I could demonstrate here once I attach this back. I'll quickly just do a quick jump over here to show you. This is where I actually have my character sets down here. You see these are all where it's grabbing all my maps in memory. Oh, let me see. The first one is not loading from a disk, or is it? Oh, this is a map. Never mind. That's the character set is still loading in memory, but the maps are not being loaded in memory. But later you can have it do the same thing with the maps, the attributes, the tiles, and stuff like that. Tiles would probably be a good one because it's a really long. And I'm always trying to track out with this DRM master tool, how many files can you actually store in there before you have no room left? So I don't really know. I could probably get away with doing the tiles, the maps, but you also have to go into this disk doctor tool and do that to every single file. So if I'm going to keep changing that constantly by creating a different map and using this map, I have to redo that over and over every single time. So it's a lot of work and a lot of time, effort. But anyways, back here, so if you go down here, we're looking for the character set. Let me see here. Right here, actually, I just passed it. So this is where it loads our memory. This is where our character set's existing. And you remember that 4802 you saw earlier, which was on here under the game routines. I'll move back up here and show you that. Actually, was it down? Oh, actually, that's all the way at the top here. I can't show them both the same thing because it's at the very top of this file. So it's char load, which is right here. This is the starting address for each individual file. So the char load is at 4802, and our character set starts at 4800. So again, it knows where the character sets are as long as you always tell it those 2 extra bytes, and it knows exactly that those are exactly where the map's going to appear. And of course, the reason why you saw the map fails is other rules that are really important with the kernel is basically telling it that it can find the file name only if it knows it's read the correct file name, and one of the parameters it uses for that is checking the file length. So let me run the program here. I think I have it. It didn't say my disk image was set, so I'm going to do that real quickly here. And I'll switch back to device again here. And we're still trying to get the next map to fail. And here's the door, right? So if we touch this, we should go to the house map as we've always done, right? Nope. Now you see this is what I'm talking about. You see how what it's done is it's actually loaded in the map. You can recognize that this is the house, right? Careful though, it's not looking like we originally saw. It doesn't look perfect, right? It doesn't look like an actual map. So the reason why this works is because if I go back here to device emulator, and since we're in the right section here, I'll go down here to map number 2 here. You see here on map number 2, I'm telling it where all these files already exist. I'm telling it, so it already knows in memory that there's a map here. There's attributes. These are the collision detection that goes on the background for the color RAM. And there's tiles. So it knows all that by putting that together. And this is why you see everything put almost together, but the character set is not found, which is exactly why you're seeing the weird stuff you're seeing on the screen. It looks like it's picking up some kind of character set, but it's not the right character set. But you saw that it failed. So that's why you always have to have those file names correct. So we'll go back here and we'll fix that. And we don't need to demo that because I already know it'll fix itself. But like I said, as I mentioned earlier, I spent a long time trying to get those crazy maps to work properly. I don't know why the scroll option is not working. I'm trying to reduce the size here. And it looks like my scroller has failed on that one. I can maybe do it on this one, but I can no longer do it on this. Okay, there we go. That's weird. Little bug going on there. But anyways, we'll go back and we'll just undo it, right? It was 15 here. It should be 16, so we'll put it back. Or was it 17? No, it was 16. 17 worked. But apparently, if you don't have enough bytes, then that's probably when I notice it's failing. So back to our project in session here. So we learned about that. I think I beat that like a dead horse, right? We'll go back to the character set example to show you the next part. Here, this is where it gets the file name. It compares what we just did with the file. And this is the file name low and high, so it loads it into the set name. Now it's actually got the file name correctly here. This is what this kernel call is basically saying. Give me the name that you found on this disk. That's what that does. Now down here, this one is going to tell the device. That's why I kind of commented here. It's just real simple. You set an accumulator X and a Y register, and these parameters for this kernel will tell you this is exactly the device we want to use. Notice I put here 8 for the X register, which identifies the device. So down here, this is just an area up here earlier. We basically told it this is where that character set lives in memory. And I don't know if this part is necessary because I don't really think that it does with anything else. It does go here to load the kernel. Maybe that's necessary. Oh, actually, I think this is where it actually does the actual loading. There's no loading going on here. This is just saying where's the character set, the device number, and here it actually loads the file. So yeah, that's correct. And this is telling me if the file's name is not found, then it's supposed to change the color of the screen. But I never really, rarely ever see this happen. I don't think I've ever seen it fail and change the border color. I've even tried other tests with messages to the screen, but I haven't really seen a way that I could really detect if the file's failed or not. There might be another way to do it, but that's for the most part how that routine works. Now, getting back to the debugging notes here, they kind of jump around here. Let me see if I have that up here still. Yeah, I have it all the way over here in the corner here. So this was from last night when I did my first recording. I'm going to double check again and make sure my video's picking up the next load. It was 696 last time. If I refresh that, yeah, again, I have to close it out. There's no refresh option for Explorer, so 696. If that's even correct. It does still show me OBS shows it's recording. I just wanted to make sure for my own sanity that it is working. Yeah, it's over 1 meg right now, so we're good. That's such a relief. And I tested the audio and all that, so that should be working here. I can see it moving here in my audio mixer in OBS, so you should be able to hear me and everything. I don't know if those who are in the chat, if I'm too loud, I can't really tell people if I'm too loud or anything like that. If there's other irritations or things you think that'd be corrected, go ahead and throw those in the comments section or even afterward. That'll really help me to improve on these videos in the future. I appreciate that so much. My goal is only that this is not about me. It's not a me session. It's an us session. So anyway, let me see here. I'm going to go back. Oh, I know. Don't forget I was going to do here. I wanted to show you the pseudo coding, which like I said, I highly recommend it here. So I'm going to move this over, maybe shrink this down a little bit more so we can see it over. It's a little bit off the screen now. So I don't know if you guys see me. I'm moving some windows around here inside of my stream. Maybe make this a little bit. I don't know if I can make this longer. If you hit the Alt key, somebody says you can make it longer. That didn't work either. And I'm going from a curved monitor, which is probably about 42 inches or so, to like a 32 inch, maybe bigger than that. It might be like a 52. It's something that it's really big to a smaller monitor, so it's not setting these screens properly here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'd like to get a whole screen, but I'm just going to set this up in a totally different screen. I'm going to name this one now. The one I called last night was Twitch Debugging Stuff for Twitch. I'll just say for the next day, which is August 23rd. There we go. Okay, I want to set up a separate window, so bear with me a minute here. Now this Be Back Soon window, I wanted to put that on a window where if I'm doing something in the background, you wouldn't see that. Unfortunately, every time I click one of these, it's just going to go black on me, so it's not really going to be any help to you guys seeing a black screen. So let me see here. That one I've set up for the Lodestar demo, so we'll wait on that one. I think I'll have to create another scene for it. Let me see, we're using this one. Yeah, I'll just use this one. This one's already preset. So here I'll tell it Notepad. So I wanted to make it so you can see it and make it a lot larger and easier to see it. There you go. I think that's pretty good. And feel free again, and if you can respond in the chat, and if I'm able to even find the chat, whether or not you have permission to chat, I'd like to know all that in the comments. I had trouble. I couldn't talk. I couldn't hear you properly. Whatever it is, I really need to understand if there's any issues going on technical, because we're going to work those out as we go along. It's better than not having anything loaded at all, because that's exactly what happened to me last night. I was up to like 3:30 just trying to figure out what happened. And that's why I finally learned about that VOD setting. So anyways, here, we'll just call this next series pseudocode, right? So pseudocode in a nutshell means basically breaking it down so that you have a better understanding what your program is doing whenever an issue has arisen that you don't understand. It's a way of debugging it from a logical level. And it's faster. What I use for my pseudocode, you can always change, use your own. I just use the original basic programming for the Commodore 64, since this is obviously a semi-language for the Commodore 64. So to demo that, we'll probably go into an area here back in the map, and let me switch gears here again. And switch it back to the main screen, because I don't have my camera running on all the different windows. So just so you could give me a minute here, I'm going to pick an area. Now, one thing we did detect in this project earlier is we know that there was a scrolling issue going on. So obviously I've been working on that for months on end, but I wouldn't say I devoted 100% of my time, because I'm still trying to keep the projects moving forward. And it's something I'd like to fix, but I haven't been able to. I know it is, we could actually use this in our pseudo map. So let's just switch back here for a minute. It moved again, so I'm going to move back up here and say current bugs or something like that. And you could track them out like 1, 2, 3, or so on, like that. I'm sure I can probably come up with a lot of bugs for this project. So let's just say the one we're looking for is a scrolling issue. And we know issue occurs when player collides into an object and when player falls. This is a scrolling vertical direction on the vertical, something like that. So now you're just basically just told us the current bug we want to look for. Down here is going to be the testing phase, I call it, where we can start writing out what is going on. Oh, it looks like you can't see that part, so let me move this up a little bit. I had to resize my map again here. I can scroll it down here, you can see it that way. So there you go. So testing phase is going to be the pseudocode written in Commodore 64 semi-language, which we would like to try to figure out where the problem is occurring at. So I'm going to switch back to, and I don't really need to switch back, but I want you, as soon as I'm on another screen, I want you to see what I'm doing here. Otherwise I'd be over here talking and you're like, okay, now you're back on the compiler, but I don't see what you're doing, because earlier you were just showing me the pseudocode in Notepad. So now we're back here. We want to try to figure out, let's say for example, we were looking for where that scrolling issue may be. So I have a scrolling routine, but again, I know it's not here because I've tested this one hundreds and hundreds of times, I can tell you. But there's a scrolling routine here where it all begins. But we identified it was happening on the vertical. Now, where the scrolling kicks off is in this player routines, but it's also being identified in another routine here. Let me make sure that that file is being recognized here real quick. And really important, you always want to know the exact files you're working with. And if you see this section here for Inc. ASM, this is, I don't know what it stands for, include assembly language maybe. These are the semi-language files that this project is currently using. So there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 there. So these two right here, this one right here is pretty identical to this one. I just use this one to move the second sprite on the screen, which is the woman you saw. But right now I have her in a static state, so she's not moving. So I think the issue might be happening here. So one time I went through and I started commenting this all out to see if that scroll issue disappeared. And I can't recall if that was the issue, but that was something you could do with your pseudocode. As you get better and better, you'll get better at identifying, again, where those issues are arising. So if you want to do, we could start with the attacker, since I think that might be related. Or it could be in the player routines. We don't really know at this point because they're both very identical in that state. So let me go here, and I'm looking for the attacker. And one thing I really have mentioned for those who may be interested, when I get some more time, which I don't know when that's going to be, I'd like to be able to convert this over to Kick Assembler. I know I've mentioned that so many times before, but it's a time-consuming process, and also really understanding how, excuse me, CVMPRG Studio works versus Kick-Ass, right? So we have to understand those differences when you're writing code, because there are a lot of different parameters and there's a lot of different rule settings you have to have from one to the other. So once we make that crossover, then we can eventually convert it over to Kick-Ass, which would be nice. But you also have to have an area where you set it up. I would be using Visual Studio Code for my tool for it. There are others you can use, but that's important too. So getting around that would be nice, instead of working with these white screens. Because I would love to be able to have like a dark mode for this, but I tried lots of things. I couldn't get the dark mode to work. So anyways, I'm going to go down here, and we'll start doing some quick jumping around here, right? So we know what's happening on the vertical, right? So if we could just go down here, and I don't know if you're gonna see this, but I'm typing in a search option in the find window here for CVMPRG Studio, and I just hit scroll to see if it's gonna help me find all my scroll routines. Another thing you could do here, if you see me here at the top here, is you can click this little icon or whatever you want to call it. This is actually going to also bring up, which you probably won't see, an option where it's going to detect all the what you're trying to find in your projects, your files. So I just typed in scroll here, and you'll see it'll probably bring up quite a few different ones down here in our output window. It's brought up quite a few, so we probably need to narrow that down more. So you can narrow it down just to this project alone, but you can also narrow it down to the entire. I just wanted to show you that. So right now we're just going to keep it simulated to only this window here. So we'll hit find next here. I don't know if I can do that in here. Let me see. Let me go back to that real quick. So assembly files, all files, basic files. It looks like it only lets you do the basic files. The assembly files are all files, so you can't really pick which project that I can see here. Let me see. I can tell it. It's kind of interesting here. Yeah, I guess it doesn't let you check it by individual file. So I'll have to just kind of move through here. It's going to find all the words. It's called scroll. So here's the first one it came across as it went through the lines. So move enemy right. So we noticed earlier when we moved enemy right and left, there was really no issue that I could detect that was going on with the scrolling. But when you keep going here, and we moved out of there, now we're on to the enemy move left scroll routine, or the movement routine, and then when the sprite moves over to the corners or the edges, that's when the scroll starts happening. That's when it picks up everything in this scrolling ASM file. So I'm going to move through this and see if I could detect. So I could even compare these two, and maybe that might be another scenario I could try. But again, that pseudocode will help me more. But that's why we would want to go through. I'm trying to find an example here. So here's a down scroll. This is probably a good example. Where is this a pseudocode from? Not that we're probably going to fix it, but we're going to give it our best shot, right? Let's see the moving enemy. This is move enemy down. I don't know if that's going to affect our sprite. What we could probably do is comment it out and anything that's move enemy down and see if our sprite still moves. I'll probably get some errors when I do this though, but let's see here. Time to go through the real fun of assembly language, which is debugging. So we're now looking for the subroutines, which I should just call it JSR subroutine. Every time it finds enemy down here, and what we'll do is we'll comment out these lines. You just put a little semicolon in front and it'll comment those out. Let's see how many more. It only found 2. So that really wasn't too hard. Now we'll rerun the project and try to move down, and we'll go to that second map, whatever. I'll have to go to the internet map or whatever, go down there. Maybe it might even show up on the first screen and see if the screen tears when I'm doing that. And again, this would be a good way to really kind of pseudocode this one. The larger your projects get, the more difficult the debugging process can become. And that's not to discourage you, that's to encourage you to keep thinking and think critically, as they used to tell us at DeVry University. Think critically when you want to try to figure out what's going on with something. Don't give up. Just keep trying to think, and then try to look at the outside, try to look at the whole area that's going on, and try to see the bigger picture, and then try to narrow that down to find out what the problem is. I still wish I had this, I don't know if it was a PDF document, but it was a real good one, and I might have it somewhere on my drive. So basically a device where it teaches you how to think critically if you were running a business and something big went wrong. Let's say you're running a huge shipping assembly line, all of a sudden you notice that this part of shipping is not, people are not getting their orders, but it's working fine on all the other places. If I had a place that would actually break it down and show you what you could do and see a bigger picture and say, okay, now we're looking at this hierarchy of a breakdown, and we know what's happening in this section, and you could break it down further and further and further like a giant flow chart. And there's a different process you have to go through to work out what the problems are. And it was just an excellent way to really think critically, you know. I think even Steve Jobs used to say, think smart or something. I forget what he would say, but critical thinking is very important. And it was very important at that school, and I have a respect for it. So anyways, let's go back here. So I ran the project. It looks like it loaded it up, so that's great. We ran into no issues there. I'm just going to go ahead and once again, we'll just do all the regular processes. And actually, did I enable that map? Yeah, we still have the second map loaded. We don't have the third map running. The character set's distorted on that one. So I'll just go ahead and set this up again, attach it, and run it. Switch back to my Vice window, which is down here now, of course. Okay, so on this one, of course I got to tell my joystick, so shut off again.